Hey guys, welcome to Punky's World. This is a daddy bio. Now I've talked to you about his work in the mill, a little bit about his work as a steeplejack. He was also a house painter. And later on, when he worked at the mill, he would sometimes on weekends do painting for elderly people. And, I would imagine he gave them a better deal than a full-on business would do, even though he was a professional and did a beautiful job. So, and he loved doing that. He loved helping. In fact, I remember one time we were in the parking lot of a store, and he had Mom and I go to the car, and he stopped, and there was a very elderly woman, and helped her load her trunk, asked her, got someone at home that can help you unload? Oh, yes, thank you so much. And he was just so kind. We've talked about the fact that my father was born with a club foot. Basically is a turned foot, but in his case, it was all the way around backwards. He talked about going on the train to see his doctor, and there was another little boy and his mommy that went with him and his mom and his mommy to go see the doctor, and how much he loved his doctor. My dad was a goof. He liked to play little jokes on me and stuff. And, I had my stuff with my mom and my stuff with my dad. I had special things with both of them. With my dad, it was Dukes of Hazzard, Incredible Hulk, wrestling, and we watched every Bad News Bears movie together. He introduced me to them. I remember one night we were going to watch Bad News Bears go to the Houston Astrodome. So Mom went to bingo because she wanted us to have that daddy-daughter date. And I fell off my bicycle and banged up my knee pretty good. It was all cut up and bruised up and nasty. My dad very gently cleaned it with a warm wet washcloth, and he told me to go get his can. On his dresser, he kept, or his bureau, a can that I called Daddy's Magic Can. It was something called a solar cane. And I didn't know they still made it until I was at my girlfriend's house. I had used her bathroom and I was washing my hands and I saw it sitting there. I dried my hands, I went out and I said, "Solar cane?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "That was the magic can in my house growing up." She said, "Mine too." That's why I still have it for my daughter. I was just dumbfounded. I'll show it to you. Boop. What? No. SOLCARNE. Okay. Here it is. Okay. There it is. Let me make it bigger. There it is. This was the anti-ouchie. It also kept you from getting an infection. And where they found it, how they found out about it, who knows. But my parents had that. And it was Daddy's Magic Can. Even before I could pronounce it, Daddy would tell me to get the blue and white can. And I would go get it off his bureau, and after he cleaned my knee, we sprayed it, and he put on one of those knee band-aids, one of those band-aids that are like this. They go on a knee or an elbow or something. It took away the sting of the cut, but nothing was going to take away the ache from the bruise. And we watched our movie. Bad News Bears go to the Houston Astrodome. Excuse me. I remember when I used to watch my shows with my dad. Dukes of Hazzard and Incredible Hulk. I used to sit in my little rocking chair. It's a little kid's rocking chair. And it finally went bye-bye when we moved here because I no longer fit in it. Even though I don't really have hips, it was still too wide for it. Sad day. But anyway, so many memories, that I had with that chair. But I just had it sitting in my room with a doll in it because of all the memories attached. But when we moved here, we finally got rid of it. Oh, was that sad? Anyway, I had things with Mom and things with Dad. I mean, he thought I short-sheeted him, so he sprayed shaving cream all over my sheet. I put my hand on that, and I thought my cat had thrown up. I was like, "Ugh!" And I ran and flipped on the light, and I saw what it was, and I laughed because I knew. And they're like, "You short-sheeted him." I'm like, "I don't even know what that means." My mother showed me. I'm like, "That was totally an accident." I'm not sure they believed me, but it was. I didn't know what that meant. So, but my father was a kid in that way. I mean, and my parents were the parents of the neighborhood. They would take, if I was playing with Dina, for instance, one time I was playing with Dina, and we were going to the local carnival. Asked her mom and dad, "Can we take Dina too?" "Bye, Dina." Go. We don't care. And my father lost his car keys at the carnival because he had a very bad habit of having his key fob hang over his pocket on the outside. Whether it was his, later on, the last couple of cars he had what I call a switchblade key. You press the button and the key pops up out of the side of the fob, and it has all the buttons on it for lock, unlock, trunk, and if you hit lock twice, it sets the alarm, that sort of thing. He never set his alarm. If I locked his car, I set his alarm. He should have learned to lock his doggone car, but he never did. Because we had a car that somebody bashed the plastic on the outside of the steering wheel to try to hot wire it. It didn't work. In our driveway, not here at our other house. And it wasn't until we got in the car the next day that we saw the damage, the crack. And we're like, how did we not hear that? But my mother's like, "You will lock your car." I don't think he did here. He might have. If either one of us went out to the car for something, we always hit the button. I always hit it twice and set the alarm. So, but that was Dad. I get my trusting nature from him. He just thought everybody was good, and I have that same issue. 3 hours until my meeting. I had to redo this video because the original one was 41 minutes long. I just do not have time for that. My dad and I, when I was little, we used to wrestle on the floor after dinner, just daddy-daughter time. Mom would watch us and laugh and encourage him to do different things to me. Nothing bad, just like, playing around. And I remember being in their bed with them and Dad sitting me on his shins and bouncing me, and the living room and their bedroom both had a mantelpiece. Because at one time there was a stove in both of those rooms because there wasn't heat. It was an old building. And it was old stuff up on top of the mantle, old bottle of castor oil and, the pictures and other stuff, And one thing my father always had by his bed was a picture of his grandparents. And since he died, I have a picture of his grandparents, my great-grandparents, by my bed. I wanted to carry on his tradition. He loved his grandparents. And that was important to him, I think that he's proud of me. I think that Mom is proud of me. And it's so funny because, like with homework, because he's a man and she's a woman, they had different... Men think in the abstract, so they're able to do things like math. That isn't tangible, that is harder for females to do, although my mother was great at it and loved it. But English and things like that were not something that he did. Don't ask him the parts of speech or, rules of grammar or to diagram a sentence because he'd just look at you. Then he would tell you, I didn't do very well in that in school. My father was a very intelligent man, don't get me wrong. He left school at the last quarter of 9th grade when he turned 16 today. As you know, if you've been watching my videos, would have been his 80th birthday. He was born April 9th, 1944, Easter Sunday, in Hartford, Connecticut. He came here between 18 months and 2 years old. His best friend was Bob Pernier, who still brings me my mail to this day. Matter of fact, I still haven't opened it. I know what it is, but I need to open it and make sure it's the right one. It's a plug. Thank you. I am so proud of the legacy, that he left for me in terms of his work ethic and all the years he spent in that mill from the time I was born until I was almost 32 years old. It's 32 years in that mill. Sweating his butt off in the summer, freezing his butt off in the winter. And I never knew until after he was gone he had his own desk. And my mother said, well, where in the world did you think he wrote slips for the drivers? Where in the world did you think he did his inventory? Did orders and whatever else? I didn't think about it. Because when we called him, they would call him up to the office to answer the phone. So maybe he didn't have a phone on his desk. Although eventually he did have his own extension. The last few years he had his own extension. In fact, my father was so trusted at the mill, and I talked about this in another video, that he would go pick up the bigwigs at the airport. He would just laugh about it. I get to pick up the bigwigs today, so I'll be home a little late. For him it wasn't, and that's what he called them too. For him it wasn't a big deal. It was like, oh, there's bigwigs. Or when the plant manager was in, he'd be like, plant manager's coming today. That's kind of a pain. No, like the plant manager's coming tomorrow, so I have to stay late today and make sure everything's perfect. It's kind of a pain. But the biggest thorn in his side was OSHA. OSHA's a good thing, but they can also be a thorn in your side. Even though he didn't have anyone under him the last few years, he was the supervisor for Warehouse Dye House. And so he would, you know, he did have a foreman over him, but he dealt with OSHA just as much as anyone else. My father had certifications, and I talked about this he was licensed to drive forklift, or what he called a fork truck. He was licensed to carry a concealed knife because they had to cut the bales. He was hazmat licensed, all of it, or hazmat certified. So, and he was trained in first aid and CPR, certified. So, today, all of the things that he was able to accomplish and all of the things he was able to do and rise through, and he could have risen higher up in the ranks, but he didn't want to wear a suit. So I'm not wearing a shirt and a tie. I'm a worker bee. I hate wearing a suit. Otherwise, he could have risen through the ranks even further to be a foreman or whatever. Although I guess they wanted a high school education for that. Later on. In the beginning, it wasn't so much. But because his lack of an education didn't stop him from moving up a little bit and from getting certifications and doing those things. And I know I talked about that before, but I think that's important. Because I think he's an example of what you can do and what you can be regardless of your education. And he is an inspiration, truly. Not only for what he accomplished, what he overcame in his life. My grandmother was a wonderful lady, a very strict lady, but a wonderful lady. My grandfather, from what I understand, not so much. My grandfather wasn't a nice man. All of his sons will tell you, all three of them will tell you, he was not a nice man. He liked to imbibe too much. And when he did, he was not a nice man. And my father overcame that. And was he perfect? Hell no. Nobody is. Was he a good man overall? Yes, he was. Did he have his faults? Hell yes. We all do. Did he sometimes say things to me that my mother would go, "Why would you say that?" And he would go, "I don't know." Yeah, of course. But I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that my parents both loved me. And like I said, I had different things with each of my parents. And I think that's important when you're fortunate enough to have two parents. I had the things with my mom, the girly stuff, putting on foundation and doing my hair and painting my nails and learning how to do laundry and learning how to clean the house and learning how to cook. And yes, I know a lot of people are going to go, "Dad could do that." Well, no, some of that stuff probably not. Cooking I learned from both of them, so mostly my mother. My dad cooked on weekends. Either Saturday or Sunday. If he worked on Saturday, it would be Sunday. And he would put a big pot roast in a pan on top of the stove with carrots, and potatoes, and onion, and just let it slowly cook all day. And that was Sunday dinner. We were very traditional in our house. And a lot of our traditions came from our culture. As a lot of people will tell you, if you're Italian, you might have certain traditions. We are Scotch-Irish, so we have those traditions. Plus, my mother's very English raising. So, and of course, the French from my grandmother. So we had a mixture of culture that sort of mashed together to become what we were. My father was somewhat bilingual. He spoke English, of course, and he spoke French. He didn't get to speak it later on, but his grandmother made him speak it to her. It was the only language. She wouldn't talk to him unless he spoke to her in French. So my father spoke French. So for someone who was supposedly uneducated, my father was bilingual. So I don't think you have to be traditionally educated to be smart. And he's proof of that. I was going to say living proof, but he's not alive anymore. So happy 80th birthday, Dad. I hope that you're an example to all. I love you so much. Mwah. Bye. Bye, everyone. God bless you.